everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by today and checking out my YouTube video. This is a video where, as you know in the title, it's about a video on how I do my 3D stained glass Cardinals. This is one of my most popular sellers, and I'm also going to have the pattern available on my website, reneestainedglassworks.com. And so if you're new to my channel, I'd like to say welcome. My name is Renee with Renee Stained Glassworks, and this is a channel where I like to talk about everything stained glass. So if that's something that interests you, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and go on over and subscribe to my channel. And also you can follow me on Facebook. I have a pretty big following on Facebook. I post almost daily on Facebook, kind of what I'm doing in the shop and little tricks and tips and stuff like that. So anyway, I also want to mention that most of the stuff that I'm using today in the video, as far as the stained glass supplies, I do sell on my website, and I am offering free shipping in the United States. So if you guys want to check that out as well, I'll put some links for that in the description below. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Some supplies you'll need are 50/50 solder, flux, 14 gauge tin copper wire, wire working tools, helping hands, finger protectors, and a foam craft cone that you can get from the craft store. Okay, so now that I have my cardinal, this is the female cardinal. Now that I have everything all cut, ground, and foiled, this is how I like to have it laid out when I solder the pieces, and then at the end we'll go ahead and assemble everything together. But I first like to tin the edges of my wings. It just makes it so much easier when you're soldering and shaping it. It's hard to get your soldering tip in between all the wings, and I like to twist them and stuff. I'm going to show you guys how I do that. But first we'll go ahead and get started by tinning the edges of all the wings. And I also want to mention that I do sell some of the items that I'm using here, the supplies, on my website, reneestainedglassworks.com, and I will go ahead and put the link for that in the description below. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to start by, like I said, tinning the edges of my wings. Because you do this because it's going to be hard to get your soldering gun in between the wings when you're doing your final attachments here. And this is also why I use gloves. You see how dirty my gloves are getting with all that flux. If you have sensitive skin, I do recommend that you wear some surgical gloves while doing this so you don't get that on your skin, because the flux is nasty stuff. Okay, and you're going to want to do the same thing with the other wing. And then you'll be ready to start attaching it all. So you can solder them flat like this, but I've been doing a new way where I kind of angle my wings, and I'll show you what I mean and how I do it. I turn this like this. Needs a little weight on this part here, but first I'll go ahead and flex it before I do that. Okay, so I'll set my little weight on there. I kind of have this low so that you can see what I'm doing here. Yep, so you see I'm twisting it a different way here and angling the feather to go a different way. That way it adds a little flare to your wings. This makes sense. Okay, so you see how they're all angled differently. And then we're just going to solder it all together. And you want to tack it because you don't want to get it hot in one spot and have your wing fall down. So I like to tack it all and then run my bead all the way through. there's quite a gap there, so you're going to need to, you know, use quite a bit of solder and fill that in. You can see where that big gap was that we're filling. So I'm going to use what solder I got right there. A big clump of it. Let's turn it this way so we can see it. Okay, so using my my little thermal grippers, I'm gonna lift this up because it's hot, and I'm gonna show you how it's kind of. I really need the other gripper, but oh, I do have it. That way I can show you guys the angle of the wings. Okay, so see how they're flared out like that? That's what you want. And now I'm gonna go and run my solder along the edges here to finish the wing. And this is why you want to make sure that you tin the edges of your feathers here before you attach them, because down in here it's hard to get down in between there with your gun or your iron. But I just want to do the edges, and then I'm going to do the same exact thing to the other wing, and then I'll go ahead and show you guys how I put the tail together. and then the body, and then we'll go ahead and attach it all. You could do this after you get it on, you know, the whole body attached, but I find it's easier to do this now. So then I'm going to flip it over, do the same on the other side. Okay, so our wings are both done, and now we are going to work on the body and the tail. Get this tacked together. You can see where I don't have any flux. We actually have a pair of Cardinals right now for the first time since we've been feeding birds about, I guess we started feeding the birds about 1.5 years ago when our dogs, or the last of our dogs passed. And we've been waiting and waiting for Cardinals to come. You know, we have the usual, we have the Blue Jays and everything like that, but we haven't had the Cardinals. And where we live on a main road, and there's a lot of traffic, and I think that's why, because the bridge down the street from us, they're repairing it, so all the traffic has been diverted, and our street is actually quiet. So now we have a pair of Cardinals that have been coming around, and oh my goodness, so happy about it. I hope that they'll stay when the traffic opens back up. And I'll put a picture in. I just took a picture the other day, and I'll put it on. So I'm really loving making the Cardinals this year. I got to look at her really closely and kind of pick out what colors I wanted based on her. And that's what these colors here are. Do any of you guys out there feed the birds, and have you had any problems? I know that I've heard there are a lot of states out there right now, here in the Northeast, where you can't feed the birds. And I'm so sorry to everybody out there who's struggling with this, and I hope they figure it out soon. And the poor birds, oh my goodness, I feel so bad for them. We just love feeding the birds and the squirrels. We have so many squirrels. That's our lovely church bells that we get to listen to here in town. I'm trying to do this and wear the camera at the same time, and I'm like hoping I get it all in the picture here. And you see, this is how I'm cleaning up the edges and just making it flow naturally. I'm sorry, I have to hold it up so I can see it. Going blind these days, getting older. And then I just kind of clean it up a little bit on the edges. And then you see how that's looks more natural. I think this needs a little bit more. Glass was a little short right there, so I'm going to fill it nicely. There we go, that looks better. Clean up my lines a little. That looks good. There. Okay, so now that the body and the wings are done, we're going to work on the tail. The tail is a little bit of a pain, especially if you want it to be curved. And when I say curved, I'm going to show you what I mean. I really don't want to touch these, but I'm going to repolish them. It's a bit of a mess in here, sorry. When I say curved, that's what I mean. The tail, you can see it's curved. So it's a little bit of a pain, but I think it's totally worth it. And I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm sorry about the noise. Okay, so I made this little thing out of one of those foam cones that you can get at the craft store. Just melted a little spot here to put the body of the bird if I want it. like that. And the tail, I'm going to line up the thickness of the bird here and kind of where I want it, like how it's going to be placed on there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than what I have measured here, only because I'm going to bend it and it's going to change. It's going to change. It's going to shrink it a little bit. So that looks pretty good right there. So then I'm going to take just a piece of whatever it is, masking tape or whatever, and I'm going to put it over top of this to hold these together. Oh, I'm sorry about the noise, guys. They're working on the bridge. It's a bit of a pain. Okay. Okay, so try and hold that in place. I'm going to transfer it to the cone and kind of wrap it around. And then we're going to tack it. You can see it's a pain. It's not perfect. And even just tacking it, you know, you can see we're going to have to kind of untape it and stuff like that. But it's worth it when it's done, I think. You can solder this flat. Does not have to be curved. I've done them flat forever. I just started making them curved like that. So let's see how this is going to go here. First, I'll try to attach what I can reach without untaping. Oh, you see that one fell? And this is what I mean. You gotta have patience with it. And if you guys have a better technique, like you could probably use pins or tacks. That would probably work better. But I guess I'm being lazy by not doing it. You see, it's not gonna stay very well. Especially because that flux is so greasy. Let's try and just get it tacked. This piece right here is not tacked yet. Okay, so we have the start of our tacking here. I'm gonna do these. I don't like the way that is. Okay. I'm doing the reach around. I gotta move this. So like I said, you see how it was a bit of a pain, but it's worth it if you can take the time to do it. Once you just get it, you know, once you get the tack started, it's not bad. it goes pretty smooth after that. Okay. So there is the start of our curved tail. All tacked. Yeah, that's great. The tape really helps. Okay. So, there's the curve. Yay. You don't want to get it too hot because you don't want it to, you know, you don't want the solder to melt and lose the bend in the curve in your tail here. So that looks great. Put it back on here so we can keep our curvature while it cools. And then I'll go over these lines one more time and then do the edge. Okay, so you want to take your body, try to line it up as best you can. I'm kind of pushing it against the side of the table here, add a little bit more stability to it. And this might not even be right, might take a couple times to get it lined up just right. So I suggest that you only tack it once, and especially with me holding the camera, it's hard to see, I'm sorry. We're gonna see. That's why you want to do it once in case you have to move it. Okay, so it's not too bad from this point. About this point, does it look crooked? Be turned a little this way. Maybe just a little smidge. Okay, and that's all going to get filled. I'm going to tack it a little bit more. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. And then we're just going to start filling around it here, around the gap. I hope that you guys can see it. You're going to want to solder till, you know, it's flush. Don't do too much. I'll let it cool. And then come back and try to even it out here. And then next, we are going to attach our wings. Okay, so I have a piece of 16 gauge tinned copper wire here. You can find this on my website. I'll post the link below. And this is what I use to hold the wings together so they don't fall apart. The solder alone isn't strong enough. But I'm kind of, with the curved feathers like this, it's kind of a little bit difficult when I attach it to kind of push on it and shape it around those curves. So I'm kind of just seeing right now if I'm able to do that. You know, kind of form it and maybe shape it so it goes around a little bit easier. And I don't have to push on it so much. I hope this makes sense, or at least it will. So that's kind of all I'm doing right now, is just trying to form it. Because this is going to run in this line. Alright, let's see what happens, I guess. Okay. Well, that's all we can do. So anyway, I use these helping hands. That's what they're called. They are also on my website. I'll post the link for these as well. And we are going to tack our wings on with the help of these. You want to be careful not to rip your tape. So I might have screwed this on a little tight. I want to be able to turn it and angle it here. Okay. And we're only going to tack it in 2 spots because we may have to change it if it doesn't line up with the other wing. So you want to make sure these are going to hold it. And I'm using the base of the foam, whatever it is, foam thing that you can get at the craft store. I'm using the base for that to hold my bird so that I can attach it like this. And now we're gonna go with this one. Now here we go with the loud trucks, guys. I'm sorry. So you're going to want to just, again, just tack it in 2 spots because we're going to look at it from the front and see if it lines up. See if the angle is good. And I'm going to do that without even tacking another spot. So let's